Why do I need a public adjuster when the insurance companies, I pay them premiums, they're going to come and pay my claim? That's not the case. If you really think the insurance company's in business to pay out full claims, that's not their business model. You got to think about it this way. The insurance company has their own adjuster, their field adjuster, their vendors, their agent. They're all working for the insurance company. They're paying, those people, there's no way they could come to your house and represent you while representing the insurance company.
Are you looking to achieve massive success in your life without dealing with costly investment nightmares? If yes, then this is the podcast for you. Here, we provide engineers and busy professionals all the secrets and strategies to create multiple streams of income, build generational wealth, and live a meaningful life by design. Here's your host, Ted Patel.
Hey everyone, this is Ted Patel and welcome to this week's edition of Decoding Cash Flow Podcast. Today I'm here with Andy Gurczak, who is a founder of All City Public Adjusting. Andy is a public adjuster assisting property owners to get higher payouts on their insurance claim. And today he will be sharing some advice and strategies on how to maximize insurance claim values that you truly deserve. Andy, welcome to Decoding Cash Flow. It's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, Ted, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
All right. So before we dive deep into your niche on, how public adjuster, what are the roles and responsibility of public adjuster? Can you give our listeners a little bit background of yourself? What do you do? And then we can take it from there.
Yeah, just a little bit about myself. I grew up in the construction industry. Had my own construction business for a little bit. So I kind of knew all the ins and outs. While I was in that, I met a public adjuster that took me under his wing after a while. Taught me the entire industry in about 3 years. He had 40 years experience. We brought in some other people. So I got a crash course within 3 years of, combined like 80 years of experience just thrown at me in about 3 years. Learned all that. And then kind of, while that was happening, we built All City. We built that up and we built that on premises of, hey, we're not going to solicit people. We're not going to chase. We're going to build a solid company, solid foundation. That helps you with the people reach out to us. And that's kind of how we've grown. And, today we cover, I think as of today, we just got 2 more states. So we're licensed now in 33 states that we help property owners.
So what made you switch from being in the construction industry to public adjuster?
A good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, Todd. I was in sales too there for a little bit. I did like construction. There was nothing wrong with it. I think I was at a point where I had a partner and we kind of wanted to go our own ways. And the way I thought that was going to go, where I would have handled the sales growth, he would have handled the work, and kind of it didn't work out that way. We went our own ways. And in that time, I met my mentor, Herb. And I really liked when we were doing fire restoration. He came out. I'm like, hey, this guy comes out clean. What does he do? Hey, he's the one that's helped these clients get all this money, put him back in the situation. I'm like, man, I want to know what he does. I've never heard of it. So then I became more intrigued, started asking more questions. Curiosity led me to say, hey, you know what? I like what he does. And then I did dabble in construction when I did adjusting still. But then when, you kind of have to pick, either you're going to be at 10 different things at once, or are you going to just do one thing really well and build on that? And that's when I'm like, hey, I got to switch my focus from, construction adjusting to just adjusting to grow this business and really focus on this. And that's kind of one thing led to another and just kind of moved on from construction in general. I am building my own house, though, at this time. I'm just saying that. So.
Yeah, that's great.
I can never get away, Ted. As hard as I try, I can't get away from that construction.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, once you get a feel of construction, if you have done a couple of projects, it's hard to stay away from that segment.
It is. Sometimes it just keeps sucking you back in.
Yeah. We are into construction. We are into ground up development of luxury single family homes as well as small multifamily properties. So we do both ground up construction as well as do multifamily syndications out of state. But yeah,
that's interesting.
So yeah, that's why I was interested.
That's high level. That's high level stuff. I was doing bathrooms and fire restoration. You're doing high level stuff. So,
Eddie, many of our listeners, right? They know how to what is an insurance, why to take the insurance, but maybe they haven't done any insurance claim till now. So they are not aware of what the public adjuster does. If you want to give our listeners a little bit background of the roles and responsibilities of public adjuster, please.
100%. The easiest way to explain what a public adjuster is, it's a licensee in the state they work in. Let's just say, we're talking, you're in Jersey, so we have a license there. So a licensed public adjuster, otherwise you could look at it as a private adjuster, someone that works for you, right? Someone that represents the insured on their behalf against their insurance company. When someone says, well, why do I need a public adjuster? When the insurance companies, I pay them premiums, they're going to come and pay my claim. That's not the case. If you really think the insurance company is in business to pay out full claims, that's not their business model. You got to think about it this way. The insurance company has their own adjuster, their field adjuster, their vendors, their agent. They're all working for the insurance company. They're paying those people. There's no way they could come to your house and represent you while representing the insurance company, right? Yeah. They're the person they're looking out for is the insurance company to save them money, to underpay claims. They have guidelines to do it, even though it doesn't say don't pay claims. No, it says here's our guidelines. Here's what we don't pay for. They just do it in a different way. So we come in and we represent the insured to make sure they get the max payout, they get all their coverages intact, that they fall on all their endorsements. And these days, besides even the max payout, the biggest thing is getting the claim approved, because a wrong term or wrong word will get your claim denied, if not delayed, ultimately denied. So just getting that claim approved and getting it to a stage where it's going to get paid out is a big thing these days.
Yeah. So what I understood from you is public adjuster role is once there is an insurance claim, you can loop in an adjuster to make sure the insurance company does the right payout. If they don't, then public adjuster will come up with the reasoning, the data that shows that, okay, instead of insurance company paying like 100K, they should be paying 150K and so on. And they will fight for you to get what you deserve.
100%. That's correct.
Right.
100%. Right. And you want to get one involved as soon as possible as well.
Yeah. And of course, maybe if the claim is bigger, it's better to have an adjuster right away, depending on the size of the claim, right? If
yes.
it's
so
just
there's some
few grands, then it doesn't matter.
And that's the beauty of we tell any investor, you want a public adjuster that's experienced on your team, right? Because if you're one of our clients and you've done claims with us and you call me, say, Andy, we had this water break at our property. Okay, we'll send our team out, check it out, and I'll say that there's no reason to file this claim or file this, but only this got damaged. They'll pay you out for this. There's no need for us to get involved. Here's your photos. Here's everything you need for them. This is what you say when you call them. There's no need. Right. Yeah. So, and a lot of times we'll go in and say, hey, don't file this claim. There's really no claim here. This is wear and tear, or this is old, it happened from age, because there's no reason for them then to come and take pictures out of the whole property and now maybe, take away insurance from you. So,
and maybe bump up the insurance price.
If they come in and if they come to your property and they say, oh man, you had a water break, but now we're looking at your roof. Your roof's 30 years old. Hey, we're going to drop you unless you replace the entire roof. Well, and now no carrier is going to pick you up. So you got to avoid that. That's why a good PA is going to always, I invest in properties as well. So, I teach our entire team when we talk about it is always imagine it's your own property. It's your own scenario. That's how you have to look at it. And that's how we treat it here.
So what are the different strategies that the insurance company uses to lower your claim, or maybe, delay your claim and, or maybe at the end, maybe eliminate altogether, just deny the claim?
Yeah, we could go down a whole list. Right now they're sending, as many vendors or third-party people, right? Mm-hmm. What happens if they send our third-party contractor or they call them consultant, right? Well, they don't have any liability. If the consultant says, hey, you don't have to pay for this insurance company, and now the insurance says, hey, they're in the wrong, we should go after them. The insurance company wipes their hands from everything because they say, hey, well, we didn't say it. The consultant said that this shouldn't be paid for. So right now they're using a lot of third party and kind of eliminating, staff adjusters and trying to hire third party out, right? Bringing in engineers, right? Because an engineer's, we just met with an engineer who said, listen, I don't know anything that literally about the situation, but I'll tell you what, because I'm an engineer, they look at us as expert witnesses, even though I know as much as you guys on this situation. And I literally recorded this because I'm like, that's the truth. But when it comes to court, they say, well, he's an engineer. He knows more than you, Andy or Ted, even though he's never built buildings. but he's an engineer, so obviously he knows more than you. And they're using higher ups and other stuff to kind of present their case and put their stamp on why they're not going to pay for something or delay something.
Yeah, so they're just limiting their liability on the
100%.
report, right? So they can always
passing
turn
that
back
liability, passing that
someone
liability
else.
on someone else.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And what are the biggest mistake that the insured party, would make while, let's start with, first of all, buying an insurance, right? What are the things that they need to take care of while buying the insurance? And what are the things that they need to be, sure of while claiming an insurance?
And my answer here is going to be towards your listeners, right? For investors and landlords, it's going to be, first of all, don't be buying your insurance on your own. Don't go on website, type in, I have a 3-unit. This is you have no clue what you're buying, right? You got to find the right agent that, hey, I specialize. I've insured this many people with this many properties.
Yeah.
And then knowing your policy. Do I have a replacement cost policy and actual cash value policy? Get all, go over the entire declaration page and all your endorsement exclusions. Right now, there's exclusions for metals on the roof. There's exclusions for this. You have to know what am I excluded for? Because then you might have to switch to a different carrier. So having the right agent would be the first thing. But then knowing the policy, and if you don't, because they're so hard to read, don't know it, find a public adjuster that can interpret the policy for you. Something we do is interpret policies all day, and our clients will send us their new policies before they bind them, so then we can interpret it and make sure everything is there in the right, there's no open liability, so or at least they're aware of it.
Yeah. And I came across one similar scenario at one of my multifamilies, where due to heavy rain, the sewer backed up. Okay. So in that policy, if the basement gets flooded by the water from outside, that will get covered. But if the sewer backs up in the basement, that won't get covered. So those are the nitty-gritties you got to take care of, just make sure you're covered in all aspect. And always the agent, who has been dealing in those kind of properties, insuring those kind of properties, would know good. They have been through ups and downs on all the claims. Yeah. So
we had a client last year. They bought a property, a 2-unit in Pittsburgh, and the agent who knew that area knew that the plumbing lines, everything's old. So she put a service line endorsement. That endorsement was $20, right? It covered up to $10,000. So they called me to say, Andy, we got a tree root. It's clogging the pipe. We keep water getting backed up. We just got this property. We sunk all our money. Like, man, we don't have any for repairs. I'm like, shoot, well, tree root's technically not covered, but send me your policy. So I read the policy. I'm like, hey, you guys have the service line endorsement. This is covered up to $10,000. They're like, perfect. Well, the claim is only, the plumber said $9,500. I said, perfect. So we called the claimant. I called the adjuster, and he called me back, I think the next day. He says, Andy, this is not paid for. It's not a covered loss. I said, you are right, but they do have an endorsement for this. And then he said, well, I don't know about that. 2 days later, he's like, hey, I sent the check minus it. They took the deductible, they paid policy limits, everything. So that agent that actually told him, like, you guys should send your agent a huge thank package, because that was her knowing that and putting that in just saved you guys $10,000.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andy, let's take one of the use case, right? Where if you can give more details from beginning to the end of the use case, where you were able to, negotiate with the insurance company to get more payouts for an individual or a company.
And every day we have claims. Yeah. We just finished an 8-unit in Chicago. We started at 600,000. Their adjuster, I mean, this was rough.
What happened? What was the
case? So they had a fire. 8-unit building.
Okay.
They contacted us right away. One of the team members, they're a big investment group. One of their team members that's on that team here in the Midwest actually used the PA in another state, so she was aware. They contacted us, so we came in right day one. We met the adjuster. His original offer was $220. Then we had to, the amount of detail we went into keep presenting this file for him to even, because again, the other option, if they don't settle with us, it's an appraisal or then attorney. We're always trying to settle in-house and try to do everything in-house because that's what we're getting paid for. So they ended up sending 3 consultants from Georgia. So we ended up settling that, I think, at 480. 480 was the final settlement. So we went from 220 or 230 up to 480. We were at 600. We had some other stuff. I personally wanted to keep fighting. I thought we could get up to 550 was fair. The insured was like, hey, we're super happy with 480. Like, we're in a really good situation. And we got them loss of rents maxed out for 12 months. They fixed that building in 6 months.
What was the replacement cost on that insurance policy?
Ooh, that was a big building. I think they were like $1.5 million. So the fire was in one of the units, and then you had smoke and sit in the other.
Okay.
So it wasn't bad. Only the one was really major. The other ones, they were able to paint, do a quick rehab and get tenants in there.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yep.
And how long did it take for all the negotiation?
That was about 3 months.
3 months.
About 90 days. 90 days. I mean, we had their first offer that was within a couple weeks. Then getting them and negotiating to get up to 480 took about 90 days.
So talking about this fire claim, right? I've seen a lot of situations where there is a fire in a building, but the insurance won't pay the full amount until, like, if the replacement cost on the insurance policy is less than the actual, if you get from the contractor, they won't release the money until you have enough money to cover the gap. Have you come across?
You're saying till they do the repairs, till they perform the repairs to get,
like, for example, let's say the contractor, right? They came up with an estimate of 600K.
Yes.
The replacement cost on the policy was about 400. All right. So insurance company will say, okay, we'll pay 400. Do you have the gap to cover the 600, like $200K, $200,000 gap? So have you come across any of these things?
No. I mean, that means the insured's underinsured.
Yes.
Underinsured. So if I looked at a property and you called me and say, Andy, we had a fire at this building, and you send me the policy and you say, and I see it's 200,000, and I'm looking at the photos, or I go look at it, I'm like, this is a total loss. I'll tell you, Ted, we're not charging you. We're not going to do here anything. This is going to get maxed out. My estimate would be 600. They'll probably come at 400. It's either way, they're going to be over limits. That there's no way we can't charge you on that. But yeah, that happens. I mean, more and more people are underinsured. That happens all the time. What happens is, Ted, and this happens a lot, they insure per home and location. So let's say you have 2 homes identical. Excuse me, 3-story brick, but you put one in one area, and maybe that house is only worth 100. So then, the agent will only insure their program for 150. But that same house in that other area is technically, 800,000. So they're going to insure it for 800. But the cost to insure it should be for rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Because that same house over there for 100, it's going to be the same rebuild cost as that other one that's insured for 800. It doesn't matter. To rebuild is the same cost. Just because it's the location, that factors into what it's going to take to rebuild that house.
Yeah. So for this insurance, for the total demo, right? Those kind of use cases, what
total loss?
Total loss. And anything specific that the insurance policy holder needs to be sure of, like any?
Yeah. So every policy, when it's total loss, like, we still get involved. Like, if you did have the fire, you're maxed out. I'll still look at the policy. I said, I'll tell you, Ted, you have your limit. You also have 5% debris removal. Okay, well, 5% of 200,000 limit, well, that's 10 grand right there, right? You might have building code, another 15%. Bam, right there. This is what needs to be done for you to get that. But we can write that up, and then once you do it, they'll pay you for it. So there's a lot. Building code endorsements, debris removal endorsements. There's usually one of the carriers says like over the limit additional amount that if you incur it, they'll pay for it. So there's other stuff. They just won't tell you. And a lot of the agents have no clue because they've never seen the policy.
Right. And of course, once you claim the insurance, there's always an impact on your renewal, like you'll see your insurance cost go up?
That I'll tell you about that, Ted. I mean, that
Mhm.
people are, sometimes, people are like, well, if I file, will my insurance go up? Your insurance is going to go up every year.
Yeah.
Every property we have, every insurance has gone up every year, whether we file a claim or we haven't. There's properties we've never filed a claim, and I still keep shopping for insurance because it just keeps going up, and it's only going to get worse. The coverages are getting worse, the premiums going up. So if there's a claim that's a good claim, file it, because if you don't, your premiums, everything's still going to go up. That's what you have insurance for.
Yeah.
Now they go per risk area. So if you live in one area, just got hit with hail, well, now it's going to be a high risk area, like in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's paying the highest premiums because it's a high risk area. It doesn't matter if they filed claims or not.
That's true. And most of the insurance company, they are pulling out of Florida. There are
Correct.
only few left nowadays. Yeah.
Yep. So you move to Florida, never had a claim. All of a sudden you move to Florida, like, why am I paying $10,000 in premium for this home if I never had a claim? Yeah, it doesn't matter. That house in that area, it's high risk.
If anyone wants to get in contact with public adjuster, like including you, any one of them, depending on the area, what is the right time for them to contact anyone?
My recommendation is have a public adjuster before you have anything. Like, hey, have one, maybe call two and say, hey, I just want to say I have a couple properties. Can you guys look at my policy? Like, we'll look over policies all the time. And if not, and if you don't do, your due diligence and get one on your team before, that's fine. As soon as you have a claim, call and get one to look at that claim, make sure it's legit, get one as soon as possible, because the insurance companies are only getting more strict and they're only getting more slick with how they handle claims. And the longer they can delay them and then ultimately deny them, that is the end goal. Whether you think yes or no, or they're my friend, the agent I've known for 30 years, trust me, agents have no power anymore.
Yeah.
Because agents call us and refer work to us as agents. So that tells you where it's kind of going.
And when you start looking at those property, what are the specific things that you look into, like before you put together a package to negotiate with the insurance company?
So let's
What are
say
the
someone has
certain
a claim. What do we do? What are
Yeah.
we looking at?
Yeah.
Construction methods and construction costs of what it's going to take to put this back, right? You have a home, like the insurance companies use two certain programs to kind of estimate the damages, right? They're just software, they're just tools. All right. That program might say remove and replace this window, it's $100. But I know in this area, there's only two guys that do that job, and they're 3 times more. So knowing the market, knowing the extent of damage is probably the major thing is the extent. Water trickled down. Was the water from the sewer? Was it from a thing? How many different materials did it touch before it ended up in the bathroom, in the kitchen? So knowing the extent and then being able to prove everything with documents, because the burden of proof is on the insured. So once they hire us, that burden falls on us now to prove everything. Just like that fire 8 unit. And again, those are everyday losses, everyday claims, right? That burden fell on us. He's at 220. How do we get it to 480? Well, you have to prove why this has to be done and this has to be done and why that insured is owed that kind of money.
So do you also get in touch with the contractors to get an estimate from them for their building repair?
No. So we tell the insured, get bids, get estimates. Once you get your estimates, let us see them, and then we'll kind of look at it. Okay, we're at this. We're trying to negotiate this. You got estimates for this. We're in a good place. If we're way off, if we're for 100, all your bids are coming in at 2. There's some kind of an issue. Something's going on, right? But that's rare that happens. Very rare that contractors are higher than this.
Okay. All right. So now, once someone calls a public adjuster to review their file, what are the fees? Like, what is the structure on the charges from the public adjusters?
For us to look over claims, inspect claims, look over policies, there's no cost. Once we do take a claim on, it's 10% of the final settlement, usually is the starting point. So whatever the settlement is, it's 10%. Now, let's say you called us and maybe you've been denied or you've been delayed, or maybe, hey, 6 months, I only got this much money. Well, now we might come in and say, okay, well, we're not going to charge you on the existing money, but it might be a higher charge of 25% on the new money that we get you. So depending on where we come in with the claim, the lowest fee is always going to be to get the PA upfront, because the amount of work to do once you come in after a claim has been filed and it's been touched by so many hands, it's 10 times more amount of work. Once we come in right away, we're leading the case, right? They're following our lead instead of us following their lead and trying to be detectives. So your best bet is always to get a PA up front, but it usually starts with 10% of the RCB settlement.
Okay. And what are, if someone wants to vet a public adjuster, right, PA, what are the things that they should keep into consideration while talking to different PAs?
How long have you been in business? How long have you been a BA? And before you were a public adjuster, what was your experience? What did you do? Well, I was a car salesman. Okay, so you sold cars. All of a sudden, you got your license, and now you're handling claims, right? That tells you that's a really good question. What kind of claims have you done last year? Like, what's your specialty? Well, I handle all claims. Really? How many fires did you do last year? Like fire claims? Well, we did like 100 storm claims. Okay, well, we had a fire, so you're not going to help me if you only done one fire. I need someone that specializes in this category. So knowing that, that's probably the second good question. I would start with the number one. The number one is what is your experience and how long have you been a PA and what were you doing before that? Because it's going to tell you probably give you the best idea of does this person actually have the knowledge to handle my claim.
So now talking about the experience, right? What are the main segments you deal with?
Yeah, so we specialize in large loss, fires, water to commercial buildings, large residential units. We'll do storm damage for commercial. We don't really do much residential storm damage. We have a couple investors now in the Chicago area that got hit with a storm. But now you're looking at their whole portfolio of properties that you're handling. So to us, that's still considered a large loss. But if you were just saying, hey, my house got hit with hail, it's not something we specialize in. We just don't have the manpower we're built to handle larger claims and get those settled.
Is there any threshold, like it needs to be above 50,000?
No,
looks like, or something?
We try to stay, 100,000 and up kind of is our threshold. But again, if you called the first time and hey, we had a sewer backup, I'd say maybe we can't help you. I'll look up the claim and give you some tips. But if we've handled claims for you, Ted, for years, yeah, we're gonna help you on any claim. You're our client for a long, for a thing. It's more for residential people that have smaller claims, especially with a lot of people have families. Hey, we were underpaid or we have this claim. It's 10,000. It's hard. Those people with families and kids, they want to get back in their house. Yeah. Claim settlement takes, when you're an investor and you're a landlord, you're covered for loss of business income, loss of rents. You have time to get a claim, maximize a claim. Yeah. We're a homeowner. If I have 3 kids and we just had a water break and you got to gut the kitchen and the bathrooms, well, I want to hurry up. I'll fight with them. I'll figure it out, but I want to get back in that house. My kids got school next week and I have soccer. So your life gets focused on. So it's hard to come in those scenarios.
Yeah. All right. So I'm loving this conversation, Andy, but I also want to be mindful of your time as well. So we'll try to switch to the final round of questions. But before we get there, anything that you'd like to tell to our listeners, any final thoughts on the insurance aspect?
Yeah, keep in mind, something that's important. There's so many. God, I could go. We could probably turn this into like a 3-hour podcast. Yeah. But just one of the biggest things is be careful, be mindful of what you say when you're filing a claim, when you're talking to an adjuster, when you're talking to one of their vendors. You have to understand they take notes, they record calls, everything is put in your claim file. If you tell them you've had a flood, they'll come back and say, hey, floods aren't covered. Where did the water come? Well, the water came in somewhere around the wall. Okay, if water comes in from the water well, you don't have flood insurance, that's not a covered loss. But there was actually a pipe that broke there. That's a covered loss. But because you used the wrong term, be mindful of what you say, how you say it, who do you say it. The less you say, the better you are, is my advice.
That's a great advice to start with. Yeah.
And just people, and again, it's not about lying. We don't advocate for lying and being dishonest, but a lot of people just go on and want to tell them a whole life story. And in that life story, there's something in that story where they're like, this technically, because now this technically isn't covered.
Yeah. And the initial stage, right? At the first looks, the people might not realize what the exact problem is, and they might misstate the scenario, what happened.
That's 100%. And it happens all the time. And then unfortunately, then you don't want to get the call like we do where, hey, we've had a claim, now we're denied. Well, this shouldn't have been denied, but now that it is, and you've had 3 adjusters there, the only person that can help you is an attorney. And now you're paying 40% and above.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Andy, let's move on to the final round of questions. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So what is the one book that you'll recommend to our listeners that had the most impact on your life or on your business?
Yeah, I love reading books, but one that had a huge impact was The Slight Edge by I think it's Joel Osteen. I forget his exact name, but Slight Edge, great book, really great.
Oh, any one-liner about this book? What's so good about it?
As the title says, The Slight Edge, it's doing one little thing every day, and that one day accumulating into big things. Right? No one's gotten rich, no one's gotten wealthy. No, 100%. And he talks about just doing the little things and how little things every day turn into big things over time that no one sees. Like people don't see the final outcome. Like people look always at, oh, he's rich or he's got this, and they don't see the little things that person did. And that's what the book goes into. And it's just a great read. It's a super easy read. The way it's written, it's very well put together.
Right. Okay, great. What is the one business or investment advice that you'd like to give to our listeners?
Just go for it. I think just doing it. I think don't hold back. A lot of people overthink situations. Don't overthink it. Sometimes you go out and do it. Buy something. Buy the property. Invest in something. Because you really won't know the outcome. You really won't know any problems, or you could keep listening to podcasts and reading books, but until you actually go do it and then face the problems yourself, you won't know the outcome or what it could have been. So
I can't agree.
Like Nike, just do it.
Because many people, as you said, they'll keep reading books, listening to podcasts. They'll stay in the analysis paralysis phase for a while without taking any action. So just go for it. Of course, you'll have to take the decision based on the data, points, everything. But take the decision. Yes. Don't hold back. Nothing is going to be perfect, 100% perfect. So don't wait for that perfect moment.
People probably call you all the time and keep asking for advice and keep asking. Eventually, you're just like, just go do it. And again, I know it's a silly thing, right? What kind of advice is just do it? But literally, sometimes you just have to pull the trigger and just go with your gut and just make that decision. There's always going to be issues, whether it's good or bad investment. There's going to be issues. We've definitely had our shares with my wife in terms of real estate, but you figure those out as you go. Yeah. I would rather personally face problems and deal with issues as they arise than look back and say, man, I wish I did this, or man, I could have had that 10 unit, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. You learn and grow out of it. It's the hands-on experience that will make sure you grow, your business grows.
Correct.
All right. What are your main source of information to learn and grow?
Books. Nothing like books. I'm a huge book guy. Love reading books. Did over 50 last year. This year I kind of slowed down. I'm putting my time somewhere else, but I'm still reading. We're building a house, as I told you, and we're putting a library even in the house. So if there's any information, there's books. They have so much information. People put blood and sweat in those books. Yeah, and they're cheap, so you can get them for free at a library if you want. So.
Yep. Yeah, I'm also a great fan of books. I also got to read few pages every day.
Yeah, and again, like the Slight Edge, a few every day, right? People are like, oh, you read that many? Yeah, but if you break that down to pages and then how many pages you read a day, it's really not that much.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Andy. One last question: how can Decoding Cashflow listeners get in touch with you?
All your listeners can find us at allcityadjusting.com. They can email us at info@allcityadjusting. For your listeners, I'll leave them with my cell phone. If any of your listeners want to reach me directly, want to text me, call me, be mindful, don't call me at 8 or 9 o'clock. I do have a family, but I will leave your listeners with my cell phone. It's 708-655-4186, 708-655-4186.
And again, before we part, what are the states you have license for?
So right now it's either 32 or 33. I think we just got licensed in Delaware. Jersey, California, New York, and then we have I think we have 6 or 7 offices throughout the states. But even the states we don't have an office in or staff, we take claims.
Awesome. All right, Andy, it was a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure our listeners got so many good advice from you, and they'll act on it when it's necessary.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if any of your listeners or yourself needs help, we're there anytime.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks for listening to Decoding Cash Flow, brought to you by Aster Capital. If you found value in this episode, then please share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And make sure to act on what you've learned. If you want Ted Patel to personally help you reach your goals, then feel free to set up a one-on-one call with him. Also, visit us at astercapital.com for more free resources. Content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. As always, please consult your own advisor before making any investment decisions or setting a course of action. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Decoding Cash Flow, and we'll catch you in the next episode.